Can I pick up on the making space? So not just at our meals, but in our communities. Something that we've talked about before in CYI is the idea of a compassionate community, and about sort of looking outside of our own home, our own box, our own Dalet Amot. Is there something in particular about Pesach that might be triggering or difficult, financially, emotionally, logistically for some members of our community? What could we look out for, and how could we be sensitive to that?
Such a gorgeous question. Well, certainly financially, it's difficult. I often think about the idea that it seems strange that, we say halach ma'anya, and we say kol dichbin, anyone who doesn't have should come and eat. But we say it after we've already made kiddush and we have the nicest things on our table, and it feels a little bit late to invite somebody. And so I always read that slightly differently as we are playing the role of all these people, so that we have the opportunity tonight to imagine the world through different eyes. And what you said about Ukraine really resonates. Financially, it's really a lot. And then to be able to keep up with other people. I wish I could have, who are you having for Pesach? Like, I wish I could have people. Or, there's a kind of loss, like if I have so few people at my Seder, or maybe my parents are really old and they can't engage the way they used to. I had to have a fast Seder. So when you ask me the next day, how late did your Seder go? It was very meaningful. It was very fast because I needed everyone at the table. Like each stage of life has its own things.
I remember as a kid in elementary school, that was always the competition when you came back to school. How late did your Seder go?
Right. And it's a valid question. It's just to be mindful. I mean, I think that anyone who had any kind of trauma growing up, and a lot of abuse happens, unfortunately, around the Seder, around those private times, especially when there's drinking, that might be a trigger, and it's unbelievably painful. And anyone who has any kind of thing like that this might be a very hard time for them. And then the opposite, like if you didn't grow up observing a Seder, and then everyone keeps saying, remember growing up with the Seder, it's kind of, I don't want you to feel excluded because you didn't. So we have to be mindful without making ourselves, second guess every word. But I also think that reaching out to people, making sure they have a place for Seder, and also giving people a dignified out. They want to leave early for whatever reason. Letting people know how your family does Seder so they know what they're getting into. Silly things, even like when you have guests, making sure they know where the bathroom is. If there's a sofa, like where it would be acceptable to like take a break. Absolutely. So I think people knowing the plan is really helpful, especially if they haven't been to your home before.
That's such a beautiful idea. I was just I don't know what I'm at a loss for the word. I definitely didn't participate, but I participated in, there was a Zoom sort of networking for Kala teachers. And we were talking about how to prepare Kalas, how to sort of get ahead of the difficulties that sometimes can happen over Yentif when you're spending, your first Pesach with your new family. And that's exactly what they said.
Yes.
Prepare them. They might not know how your Seder runs. They might be really used to their own Seder. And even though it's the same Haggadah all over the world, it feels really different, and it can feel very isolating or startling or wrong,
Right.
Which brings you back to what you said at the beginning, right? Like we're all thinking already about how that's going to be the family tradition forever and ever.
Right.
And every little difference can feel really,
startling. And so reaching out to people saying, does your family have a tradition? What might you do? And, what have you heard? And I think that's a great idea. I also want to mention that, especially if people were working very hard leading up to the Seder and are tired, people sometimes just need quiet or like a break and, space, and asking for help is important.
Yeah.
And asking for specific help.
Yeah, that's so hard to do.
Yeah.
So helpful, right? Everybody wants to help, and we just don't know what you need.
Even like to the point of like, you're in charge of the washing station. You're in charge twice. That's your job. Great. Like, I know this is what it entails, whatever it is. But yeah.
Thank you for that.